Hi guys, and thanks for joining me today. If you're new here, I'm Marilyn, and if you're returning, thanks so much for coming back. Now, not too long ago, I was at Missouri Star Quilt Company up in Hamilton, Missouri. One of the products that I saw was this product right here called Chenille-It. Now, I didn't buy it that day, but when I got home, I could not get this out of my head, so I ended up ordering some. I'm going to try it out on a project for the first time today. So here's what my project's going to be. I have an 18-inch pillow and I want to make a pillow cover for it. So I'm going to use these two patterns of fabric and we're going to add this chenille to it. Other things that I'll use besides my sewing machine and an iron, I'll use these sewing clips. Pins would be fine. I have a measuring tape. I have a ruler to cut it with. I have my rotary cutter. I also have some scissors and then I have a toothbrush. And we're going to use this toothbrush on this chenille. We'll also use some water for that. Now for my pillow, I'm going to cut out 9 pieces of fabric at 7 inches each. I think once I sew them together, that should be the perfect size for this pillow. If not, before I add the chenille, I'll cut it down. So I have my 7-inch squares cut out and arranged the way I want them on the pillow, and I had to pick a different fabric because I didn't have enough of one of the fabrics that I showed you in the intro. And I just have the chenille laying across where I'll eventually add it. But first I need to sew all of the squares together. I'm going to sew each of the rows together first, and I'll start with the top row. I'll sew these 2 squares pretty side to pretty side, and then I'll add on the third one. Once I get the rows all sewn together, I'll sew the top row to the middle row and then add the bottom row. Now this isn't a sewing tutorial, but I did want to show my basic process. So I'm going to speed this up and voice over this part. So here, I'm just sewing my 7-inch blocks of the top row together, and I'm using a 2.5 length stitch. Once I sew 2 of the squares together, I add the third one to it. And I always like to look at them from the top before flipping them pretty side to pretty side to make sure everything is correct before stitching. The other thing is I always press my seams. I'm pressing my seams open, but if you have a dark fabric and a light fabric, you might want to press both pieces of fabric toward the dark side so it doesn't show through the top of the light fabric. Now I have all 3 rows done and it's time to stitch them together. My lines on this right side line up pretty well, but this left side is off a little. Since I'm putting the chenille over the seams, I'm not too concerned about it being off because it's not going to show. I'm going to sew the top 2 rows together first, pretty side to pretty side. So I started off by lining up the seams as well as possible and clipping the 2 pieces together. And it's time to stitch. When I get close to the seams, I like to use something like a seam ripper to hold down that fabric so that it doesn't get caught by the needle and flipped over. After I sew the top 2 rows together, I'll put the third row down, I'll make sure I have everything oriented correctly, and then we'll flip it pretty side to pretty side again and clip these pieces together. After that, it's time to press all those seams open. Then for the final press from the top, I'm using my clapper to really set that press in. Now before I get started on this, I wanted to tell you a couple things. I went ahead and decreased my stitch length to 1.5. Now the instructions on the package didn't say that, but either the instructions that I got from the seller said that, or maybe I saw it online. But anyway, I decreased my stitch length. Also, I changed the color of my thread. This is a light pink. It doesn't match my chenille perfectly, but it's better than that white thread. So the goal is to stitch this in the ditch. So in the seam of where the 2 pieces of fabric come together. As long as I get pretty close to it, I'm going to be happy. Also, because you're really going to be tugging on this with your brush, I'm going to go ahead and do a little back stitch. One down and 3 to go. And I do want to tell you, I don't think I've ever stitched with a stitch length of 1.5, It really felt like this was just barely moving. I thought something was wrong to begin with. It's finally time for what I've been waiting for, and that is to try out this Chenille-It. So what I've seen is you spray it with water or use a wet toothbrush. I'll probably spray it and maybe get my toothbrush wet, and then you really agitate it. So let's start with this one that's going up and down that crosses over this horizontal one. And I am going to leave a little space down there that I don't really agitate because I'm going to sew my pillow cover together and I don't want to have bulk under that. I can always go back and add some more or agitate it some more close to where the seam is, but I'm going to start probably about right here. And that might be too much water. And I'm not sure my toothbrush bristles are strong enough. I think this is a soft bristled brush, so I might have to go find something else. They also said that you can fluff this up with a hair dryer, throwing it in the dryer. And a video that I saw said it really worked well if you put it in a washing machine with an agitator or a towel or something like that to really rough it up and then throw it in the dryer. At this point, I'm thinking about doing that. So I gave up on the toothbrush pretty quickly. I took this downstairs, I drenched it with water, and then I used this brush that we have in our shower, like for your fingernails. I know that's kind of gross, but it's what I had. So after I drenched this, I took this brush and I just really scrubbed this way, I scrubbed this way, I went back and forth. I would hold the fabric like this and go back and forth. And I did that for quite a while. After that, I put it in the dryer with 2 beach towels, and this is how it looks coming straight out of the dryer. I don't love this yet. We'll see if I love it in a little bit. And you can see there are areas that really need some help. I don't really know what to do, other than maybe use this brush to try to get those to look a little bit better. And I see areas that I probably just didn't brush enough. But this is what it looks like so far. Let me hold it up to the camera so you can see it. I am not impressed. Let me know if you've used this before, and if you did, how did you like it? Did yours look better than mine? And what did you do to get it that way? Now this one looks pretty good. Of course, I do need to trim some of these down. So I'm going to go ahead and iron this out, press it out. I'll work on these some more, just kind of get them fluffed up. I'm going to sew the back of the pillow on. Let's see how it looks as a final product. Here's the final product, and I really want to know your thoughts. I'm not in love with this, but maybe it's my OCD. I don't know. It just looks a little messy to me. What do you think? And have you used this product before? If you did, like I asked earlier, give me some pointers, please. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And until my next video, bye-bye. Now, if your fabric is directional like my floral fabric, Now if your fabric is directional like my floral fabric,